Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is our Rice News analyst, Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Adesua.
Good morning. We showed the mission yesterday.
Action!
Adesua, my sister from Edo State.
I know.
No. Efeni, you didn't see us.
He's not aware of what he just did. He refuses to be aware of it.
Yes. Now, let's start today's review with these days newspapers as usual. The lead story, Presidency Adamant, tells Senate fate of service chiefs, prerogatives, president's prerogative. Senators decry worsening security situation, demands Oloni-Shakin, Buratai orders resignation. Some other newspapers are reporting this story as their lead also. The Daily Trust. As killings continue, Senate tells service chiefs to quit. Their fate in Buhari's hands. Presidency. Service chiefs should live on moral ground. President should listen to the people's representatives, experts. Fresh attacks. Claim 14 in Kaduna, 16 abducted in Niger. And of course, the Nigerian Tribune has that story also as its lead. Insecurity. Senate warns service chiefs to go. Only Buhari has power to appoint or sack service chiefs. Presidency. Now, we'll come back to this day, which we are starting with. We must not lose sight of the fact that this call was as a result of a motion on the worsening insecurity in the Northeast, the Northwest, and other parts of the country. That is the main call. Whether the resolution of the Senate, yes, is an advisory to the president. But if the Senate or any parliament ask any official of government to resign, that is a serious issue anywhere in the world, in any proper democracy. But, of course, the presidential spokesman was quick to respond, stating the obvious, that the service chiefs are holding their positions at the mercy of the president, and only the president can remove them. That is not in question, Ruben. The question now is that over time, this call has been consistent, persistent, that these service chiefs seem to have run out of ideas to bring about a secure nation, undermining one of the major functions of government, protection of lives and property. And in recent weeks, we have heard of several rounds of killings in Kaduna and other parts of the country. And of course, there was a report from yesterday about further killings. And I think that should be a source of serious concern to the president. This issue of service chiefs, are they doing well? Will they go? Has been on for a long time. Recall that in that exclusive interview, Arise and this they had with the president before the 2019 election, this issue was raised. Again, this issue is still begging for answer. Why don't you relieve these service chiefs of their positions and let other persons within the military hierarchy be elevated to that position to breathe in fresh ideas into the fight against insurgency, against banditry, amongst other levels of insecurity we have seen. Ruben, Rufai, and Adesua.
Well, I think that the first part of that story as captured by this day on the front page cannot be more correct. I mean, the presidency is adamant. We all know that. And the excuse given by the president, I think repeatedly, is that you cannot change hands in the middle of a war. I don't know if that is still tenable when we see that there's no difference in this war that we're fighting. and how quickly, you know, we are seeing insecurity change across the nation. It's just, I'm lost for words as to why we need to keep the same hands if things are not changing. It is the prerogative of the president, but we need to see something different. And I don't know how it's going to do that.
For me, there are two sides to this. The number one side will be the fact that most of the service chiefs, their tenures have expired, and it is only right as people move up the ladder in the military and other, you know, parastatal of government to be able to have a succession planning. And a lot of them complain that this has, you know, hindered their ability to be able to plan. I mean, somebody else wants to be service chief at some point. They want to climb up the ladder. That's only aspirational. There's a second side to it. There's been an upsurge in cases of violence and insurgency and the likes in the country, banditry, armed robbery, killings here and there. So there are two sides to a coin. And there's another third side to it, like we stated before on the show, that taking that decision, yeah, the National Assembly can, you know, put a resolution out there, but it's not binding on the president. The buck still stops on the president to take that decision. What should be done here is weigh all the sides and look at the impact and the effect of this on the citizenry of the country and make a concise decision as regards bringing all of this. If we need fresh strategies, we've tried a couple of strategies. Is it a case of strategy? Is it a case of fresh ideas? Or is it a case of just having new personnel there that wants to prove a point? But all of this, when we wrap it round together, still stops at the doorstep of the president to make that decision.
I think that, you know, the three major arms of government may not be able to achieve much if they engage each other on the basis of newspaper headlines. The Senate has passed that resolution. They themselves are aware that the resolution is not binding. And now they have set up what they call a joint committee that will include members of other committees within the National Assembly, including Navy, Army, National Security. And it's a fact-finding committee which has been given 4 weeks to come up with specific recommendations. We are hoping that those recommendations that they will come up with, they will use it to engage the president. Everything doesn't have to be, you know, on the floor or on the pages of newspapers, because they both have the same objective, which is to serve the people of Nigeria. But let's take a quick break. When we return, you know, I'll add the other issues that I would like to raise. Please stay tuned. You're still watching The Morning Show here on Arise News. Welcome back to The Morning Show here on the Arise News channel. Still with us is Emmanuel Efeni, Arise News analyst, who has been reviewing top stories in today's newspapers from around the world. Emmanuel Efeni, well, yes. Welcome back.
Yes.
Before we went on break, I was making the point that, look, the issue of national security is not something that can be determined on the pages of newspapers on the basis of tussle between the presidency and the National Assembly. It is my prerogative, it's not your prerogative. No. The two arms of government should work together, share ideas in terms of how the country can move forward. And life can be safe, you know, the country can be safe and secure for the benefit of the people. That's what Nigerians are interested in. As for the service chiefs, yeah, the consensus opinion will seem to be, look, try new hands, remove them. But we must always remember that there are still other challenges from what we have seen. Issues about personnel, issues about morale, issues about
equipment,
the military as an institution itself and its capacity to deal with the problem. We've seen soldiers saying that the Boko Haram fighters are even better equipped than the Nigerian army. That's scandalous if it is true. So these are some of the issues that they can, you know, address together. So it's something that calls for leadership, cooperation, solidarity on the all-important objective of ensuring national security. Not all this power tussle, you know, we can say this, the presidency cannot dictate to us, no.
Okay, Ruben, but the Africans say a new broom sweeps clean.
Not always.
Well, that's why we need fresh hands.
An old vacuum cleaner can sweep better than a new broom.
Now, let's move over to the Vanguard newspaper and touch the other burning issue at the National Assembly. NDDC Reps tackle Akpabio. Senate walks Ojukwu out. Name lawmaker contractors in 48 hours. Gbajabiamila tells Akpabio. Senate panel walks out Ojukwu over call on panel chair to step down. Those after Akpabio must tread with caution. Anang Foundation. Anang is the homestead of Akpabio, for those who don't know. Now, the Daily Independent also has a story from the National Assembly. National Assembly again, Des Buhari over 774,000 jobs lost. Senate insists Keyamo cannot preside over program. Reps warn Buhari against handing scheme to him. Say, Minister of State, an aberration unknown to law. Now, two issues there. First, the NDDC probe, investigation, fact-finding, because the chairman of that committee tried to give us some lessons in English, that this is not a probe, but an investigation. And of course, when the speaker came in to that hearing after the Professor Ponde collapsed, he said, this is not an adversarial, it is not an inquisitorial panel, but just a fact-finding. I think that watered down the atmosphere, which gave Akpabio the opportunity to also attend to questions in a very relaxed, or what you want to call friendly manner, and all sorts of allegations were flying back and forth. But that allegation by Akpabio that 60%, he put a figure on it, of the contracts we are talking about from the NDDC are in fact being given to lawmakers. But if you listen to that proceeding, somewhere along the line, he tried to retract that statement. I don't know whether he did it successfully, but it's on record that he tried to say, oh, that is not what I mean. Okay, let me put it in another way. But now the speaker is reading the Riot Act, that Akpabio has 48 hours to publish that list, or the full weight of the National Assembly, with all the powers conferred on them, will be brought down to bear. I don't know how Akpabio is going to come up with a list if he was actually trying to retrieve or retract that allegation. Ruben, that is another thorny one in the National Assembly.
Well,
Adesua and Rufai.
I don't know. I think that, the National Assembly, either at the House of Reps level or the Senate level, should also refrain from turning this investigation that they are carrying out into a circus. Because every time it's one drama or the other. Yesterday, we were told that Cairo Ojukwu, who had gone there to even stand in for the acting managing director of the NDDC, was asked to, was walked out of the committee room for the simple reason that he had objected to the Senator Nwabushi, chairing that particular meeting. Yes, because of course, that Cairo Ojukwu had also accused members of the National Assembly of being complicit in whatever misappropriation may have occurred at that particular
agency. Especially the chairman of the committees.
Yes.
According to Cairo.
It was that clear.
On this program.
On this program.
Yes.
Now, and then, of course, you see that what is happening now is that you now have protests across a certain part of the country. The Anang Foundation has issued a statement defending Akpabio. Some other youths are carrying placards saying that the National Assembly is intimidating persons from their area. So it's a question of how the investigation is handled. And I think that members of the National Assembly should be sensitive, to how they turn the thing into a circus. People think that, the comedy is entertaining, but it's a very serious matter, and it must approach with the seriousness that it deserves. As for Senator Akpabio, who made allegations before the House of Representatives, who has been given 48 hours. Well, the simple principle that the Speaker of the House of Reps is alluding to is that when you make an allegation, you prove it. You who alleges must prove. He has been given an ultimatum of 48 hours. Well, I don't know what the House of Reps can do to him if he doesn't cooperate. But indeed, if Senator Akpabio has details and information about members of the National Assembly who are moving away from their legislative work and have turned themselves into contractors, then of course, you know, the average Nigerian will be interested in that information, in the spirit of their right and their need to know. But if he doesn't have that information, then that will be unfortunate indeed. Because the whole idea is that if you are a lawmaker or you are a government official, you are not supposed to have conflict of interest. And that's why persons are required to give up their positions, directorship positions in companies, so that you don't use your position, you know, to promote fraud or abuse privileges.
I think to a large extent, it has to be said, this all started when there was a back and forth between a lawmaker and Senator Akpabio. And Senator Akpabio said, even you people on the other end, you are part of this, you're complicit. And I think there was a question thrown back to Senator Akpabio that, while you were a lawmaker, did you take any of these contracts? There was, you know, deafening silence as regards that. If Senator Akpabio has the fact, he should publish it. Put it out there for Nigerians to see. As a response to Femi Gbajabiamila's stance on this, they should put it out there. We had Honorable Sergio Ogun yesterday that came out and said flat out, I can speak for myself, but I can't speak for any other person as regards this. But let's not also forget, there's a report by the ICPC. I think the investigation is still on because we had the ICPC Director of Information here telling us that it's going to go in phases, that investigation, talking about constitution project and how some lawmakers have hijacked this project and used their companies to do this project. So we'd like to see a detailed, you know, publication as regards this, the dates, the contract we awarded, the monies paid, and all of that. And
so the companies and who are the directors of these companies?
Who are the directors of the companies? We need to see this paid. And if they fall short, the law should take its course. Because lives are at stake in the Niger Delta.
Indeed. Well, there's no doubt that all the action these days is coming from the National Assembly. But what that would translate to at the end is the most critical. And I just have a question. If the lawmakers, if the House of Reps is asking Senator Akpabio to publish or to release names or bring the names, I'm wondering how thorough is the investigation they're carrying out? Because this investigation is supposed to be a complete one to unearth the financial recklessness in the commission under the ministry. And so if you have people who have received contracts and you still have to demand for the names of those people, then perhaps this whole investigation is not thorough enough for you to be seeking those who have collected these contracts. They should not be out of this entire investigation in the first place. And I'm wondering, why are you asking for the names?
Efeni, it's as simple as this.
Yes.
Senator Godswill Akpabio should refuse to be intimidated by the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Because what the Speaker of the Representatives is saying more or less is that we dare you to release that list.
Yes.
Now, he should refuse to be intimidated. If the NDDC has the records, he should provide that information.
Well, but I also told you that Senator Akpabio tried to retract that statement. Whether he did it successfully or not is another matter. But on that day, he was trying to say, oh, that was not what I mean.
It's out there in
so
public,
if he falls back on that, the record that, but I retrieved that statement, I disowned that earlier statement, I don't know where we'll be heading to.
It's out there in public.
Okay.
He should release and publish those names.
He should name the names.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to other issues. Now, the Punch newspaper recovered vehicles auctioned to Presidential Villa Ministries, says vehicles allocated to government agencies after presidential approval. Salami-led panel rejects letter by suspended EFCC chairman. But if we just go back to the Vanguard, where there is also a story just at the bottom, how Malami frustrated extradition of Giesiani other fugitives, Magu. Yes, I bring this to the fore because we've heard a lot of allegations against Ibrahim Magu. Now that he's responding, we should also hear from him.
Yes.
And this Punch report about recovered vehicles, where say auction and allocated, I don't know whether these two words mean the same thing. Definitely they don't mean the same thing. But in one breath, they are saying auction, but in another breath, allocated to Villa.
So I read some part of that report. If a vehicle is auctioned, then you need to pay some fee for it.
Yes.
But
they've not paid any fee.
They've not paid any fee for those vehicles.
They are
like
saying they will deduct the money from their
financials.
Well,
so this is his own part. I mean, when the stories came out, when we had a lot of sources, saying all sorts going on, we heard their part. Let's hear his own part.
Yes.
And I think I'll say Magu should speak more on this. Let's hear his own part, and let's put all these stories out in the public. But most importantly, if the committee set up by the president is done with its investigation of fact-finding, then it should, we should see a concise report as regards this. And let's see all of this. Because at first we heard from a couple of sources that those vehicles were given to friends and cronies. Now we're hearing from Magu himself that he auctioned out some out to some MDGs, some have not been paid for, and some were allocated. So I believe we need to hear Magu.
And they're saying Salami-led panel rejects letter by suspended EFCC chairman. If he's making a point, should they be rejecting his own side of the story? But we need to get the full report from the Salami panel, because that will be of interest to Nigerians. It's not something that should be kept secret, because the allegations against Magu, one way or the other, will also lead to the public.
Anyway, thank you very much, Emmanuel Efeni. We'll see you again tomorrow.